Hello, everybody. I'm Don Weber. Coming up next on the sports page on ICN6, a new book is out documenting the 1981 Simon Kenton State Championship basketball season. We'll take you to the book launching party in Independence. We'll also spotlight the NKU men and Notre Dame Academy soccer squads. You'll also see the best from Week 8 in Northern Kentucky high school football, and we'll have word of some changes next season at Kentucky Speedway. All this and more coming up next on the sports page.
The sports page is brought to you in part by Eggleston Maynard Sports.
They were remembering the early 80s this week at Simon Kenton High School. A book release party was held on Monday, October the 9th at Simon Kenton High School. Pioneer Spirit, One High School's Rise from Tragedy to Glory by Northern Kentucky attorney Eric Deters, details the fatal explosion at the school in the fall of 1980 and the Pioneers boys state basketball title in 1981. Coaches, players, cheerleaders, and firefighters from that year were on hand to sign copies of the book. Deters talks about why he wrote about the subject.
Well, it got started probably many years ago when there was just general talk about it, but it was like a thunderbolt of lightning, I guess, where I just decided it was time to write this story. I joke that I have some street credit to write the book because my wife was a cheerleader on the 1980-81 team, and I really do consider it a sacred honor to have written this book for this community, and I took it very seriously, and I think the community's going to love the book. You don't like talking about your product, but the people that have read the book have really enjoyed it, and I think the whole community will enjoy the book. It's not just a sports book, and I didn't want it to be a sports book. In fact, on the cover, I really wanted a fireman along with the basketball players to emphasize that. But even if you don't know basketball or like basketball, this book, you will take something away from it, and I think it'll be an inspiration to everybody that reads it.
One of the more popular people at the book signing party was the coach of that team, Larry Miller.
I think the book is very well written. It tells a complete story from October 9th until the end of March, and then it really goes beyond that. It brought back a lot of great memories. I really read things in that I didn't remember. Really not the way that I remembered them as well. So great book. I think Eric did an excellent job involving the whole community from all aspects of the season.
Meanwhile, in men's college soccer action, the 16th ranked Division II team Welcome back to the sports page on ICN6. It's been 25 years since Simon Kenton won the boys state basketball championship. Many of the coaches and players were at Simon Kenton last week. Teresa Poole explains.
On Monday, October 9th, the members of Simon Kenton's 1981 boys state champion basketball team returned to the independent school for a book release party. Pioneer Spirit, One High School's Rise from Tragedy to Glory, written by Northern Kentucky attorney Eric Deters, documents the tragic explosion in October of 1980 and the team's state title run in March of 1981. One of the more popular figures in attendance was the head coach of that team, Larry Miller, who talked about what made the squad so special.
I think Troy McKinley got hot on us. I think that helped a lot. He had a great 3-week run there. Billy Meyer, who every year in the past had been injured at the end of the season and hadn't played, he really came to play. And then Dave Dixon had some tremendous games. Our big guys really came through for us, and our guards were always at it. And Greg Ponzer, of course, made the bucket against Walton Verona that put into overtime. Alan Mullen just had some tremendous tournaments. He went through the state tournament, people don't realize that, with 3 turnovers. 4 games in 3 days and 3 turnovers, and handled the ball most of the time. So we just had some big efforts from a lot of kids.
The memory of the team's success has not faded over the years.
It's never waned because I keep talking about it. People come up to me every week or so, and I don't live in this part of the state any longer, but still in other parts of the state and want to talk about that tournament. They still remember it. The basketball, high school basketball in Kentucky is big. It's been big for a long time. People don't forget it. It stays in their heart.
The leading scorer of that squad was Troy McKinley, who went on to play at the University of Kentucky. McKinley reflects back on that magical year.
Coach Miller actually said something a few minutes ago that we were in 4 tournaments during the year and we never won any. I didn't know that. I think what happened is we peaked at the right time. Nobody gave us a chance. We were ranked, out of the 16 teams, we were ranked like 12th or something. And so a lot of people just kind of bypassed us. But I think I'm asked that question a lot, what did this team have? And I think there was a couple things, and one of them was the roles. We each knew our roles. And the games that I watched today, and just in sports in general, everybody wants to be the star, and everybody wants to score, and everybody wants to do what they want to do. This team did what we had to do as a team to succeed, and I think it's no better place to look for players to play their roles in this team. And just we got along so well. There was no jealousy. There was no, again, everybody knew their roles and knew what to do, and so that was the biggest success of our team.
Another member of the team, Greg Ponzer, has never forgot what it felt like to win the state championship.
Yeah, it was a numbing feeling. I mean, the community was out in force. I think back in those days, people said if you wanted to rob a bank in Independence, that was the time to do it. I can see the faces on my parents, folks that had worked in our restaurant, Martha Messenslaughter, and just the joy. Just in John Finn and Joe Stark when he was around, all the excitement. I mean, it was just a great time.
Point guard Alan Mullins, who is the new boys head basketball coach at Ryle, admits that there was no goal of winning a state title.
No, there was absolutely no talk of any kind of state championship. There was some buzz and some excitement for a regional championship. And again, that was something that Simon Kenton hadn't really experienced prior to that either. But even as things went on, we went through the season, there really wasn't a lot of talk about state championship. It was really focused on just the regional. I think part of that had to do with the fact that we were, 64 years previous and had never had a 9th region team win it. And I think that helped us in the long run. Is when we went to Lexington, there really wasn't a lot of nervousness and a lot of fear, and we really didn't put pressure on ourselves.
Billy Meyer, who hit the game-winning shot against Louisville Moore in the semifinals, easily remembers his favorite tournament moment.
I guess I would be remiss if I didn't say when I made the shot against Moore. I mean, everybody expects me to say that anyway, so I guess that's just the easiest for me to pick up. It could have went either way. They had a big Manuel Force, as everybody knows, and, Coach's whole game plan was to give Manuel what he could take, what he would make, and it ended up being 47 that game, but stop everybody else. And we seemed to do it just enough to win anyway.
Author Eric Deters conducted over 100 interviews in researching the book. As for his favorite story,
But I think the one story that I just love is Larry Miller. Larry Miller wins a state championship. He's a physics teacher. He gets an $81 raise, and he says, no thank you, and quits. I mean, I just love it. I mean, Larry Miller is one of my favorite characters in the book. Another favorite character in the book that I can relate to a little bit is Greg Ponzer. Greg Ponzer was not the best basketball player by his own admission, but he was the emotional leader of the team, and he had the grit. And the Ponzer family is woven in the fabric of this community so great. And Vic Ponzer's part of this story, his dad and his grandfather and Greg. And the Ponzer family are icons in Independence, and Greg symbolized this community and the loyalty to Simon Kenton. Greg still comes to every single Simon Kenton event.
the 328-page book sells for $24.95 and is published by Acclaim Press. You may order the book from the publisher at acclaimpress.com. For the Sports Page, I'm Teresa Poole.
Welcome back. Joining me today is my good friend Eric Deters. Eric is known around Northern Kentucky as a lawyer and businessman, but he's also an incredible author. He's already has 2 books out in the last year, and we're talking today about Pioneer Spirit, which is about there's a copy or a look at it, about the 1981 Simon Kenton High School Basketball Championship team, but it's much more about that. Eric, you tell the story.
Well, the story is about community, in the state of Kentucky and as it relates to the importance of high school athletics, Pat. The story traces the main 7 characters and the 3 main coaches from when they were little boys, going down to Rupp Arena in grade school and middle school with their dads, watching the championship, all the way through their senior year when the explosion happens and they had to go to Scott High School at night, their entire school did, and then somehow, some way, they weren't expected to win a game. They win the state basketball championship, and it's just an unbelievable story, and I'm really proud of it. Everything in the book is true. It's a nonfiction story. I didn't have to make anything up. It's very anecdotal, but I'm really proud of it.
You should be. And what's your connection to it, Eric? You grew up out in Independence.
I grew up out in Independence. My 2 older brothers went to Simon Kenton, and I kind of tell the funny story. While I went to Latin school and missed out on all the fun, I would have been in that class. But I call it my street credit, to use modern slang to write the book, is I'm married to Mary Zimmer, who was a cheerleader for the 1981 team, and I looked on in jealousy while this was all going on. But I went to the games and hung out at Simon Kenton High School, and that was kind of my connection.
And you know why this is set around a basketball victory, the only team in the 9th region ever to win the state tournament, correct?
That's correct. 92 years in the history of the state tournament. Simon Kenton in 1981 is the only team to ever win the boys state basketball tournament, and who knows, I mean, it'll ever happen again. I mean, there were some great teams, you know, Dickie Beals, Doug Schlomer's team from Holmes, the Highlands team with Derek Smith and Jared Lorenzen went to the finals and ran out of gas. So it was a heck of an accomplishment, but the book, you know, tells a lot of detail about the explosion and the firemen.
Talk about that a little bit, because that's one of the great tragedies in Northern Kentucky, and it was the same year that this school rallied together. Talk about how you pull those 2 together.
Well, I don't think the story is as good without the explosion. You know, it's tragedy that Robert Williams, an art student, was killed. The second natural gas explosion, 30 firemen were injured, and it's amazing none of them were killed. But it is still every fire department in Northern Kentucky, and even some from Greater Cincinnati, reported to this scene because the fear was the entire school was flattened. But it is still not only the biggest sports story. After Beverly Hills, in kind of an irony, the band director of Simon Kenton High School, who wrote the fight song, died in Beverly Hills fire. But other than the Beverly Hills fire, this is probably the biggest fire story in the history of Northern Kentucky as well. And I go into great detail telling the firemen, and I'm really proud of this, Pat. At the book release, we had firemen signing books for people.
You know, Eric, what was it like out there at the school is trying to recover from this horrible tragedy, and this basketball team, did it really do a lot to bring the community together and to help people heal from that?
Oh, absolutely. And I think at the time that it was going on, and I was on the outside, but I was observing it, I think everybody kind of took it for granted. But when you look back in hindsight, just imagine today if there was a natural gas explosion and a student got killed, firemen were injured, it would be on CNN, Fox News, all the national, and then they have to go to school at night for 3 months.
In a different school.
In a different school. Their arch rival, Scott High School. And then they couldn't practice. They tried to practice in the gym. They got kicked out because the wires and all the damage from the explosion was around them. They went to Walton Verona. They went to Dixie. They went to Northern. They were vagabonds. They didn't have a place to practice. I mean, it's just unbelievable story. And I hate to, I'm not dogging Hoosiers, because Hoosiers are a great story, but they made up a lot of it for the movie. This story competes on every level with Hoosiers. And I think that when people read it, they're really going to be engaged in it.
I think you're absolutely right. Even if you've never even heard of Simon Kenton High School or this incident, it really is a remarkable book. All right, we're going to take a break and come back and talk about Eric Deters as an author, and he's going to tell us about some of the anecdotes in the book and who he got to write the foreword and the intro. This is really amazing. We'll be right back with Eric Deters, author of Pioneer Spirit, here on the chat room on ICN 6.
believe your eye. It's Sully, Celia, and Mike as Disney on Ice presents Disney Pixar's Monsters, Inc. It's unbelievable. See the monster-rific mayhem that will have your family screaming with laughter.
Ooh, they're so awesome.
Disney on Ice presents Disney Pixar's Monsters, Inc.
Well, isn't that nice?
Playing October 25th through the 29th at U.S. Bank Arena. Get your tickets today.
Welcome back. I'm talking to Eric Deters. There is his book. He's author of Pioneer Spirit. He's mainly known as a lawyer, the busiest lawyer in the state. I think you've been ranked or judged that way. I'm just looking through this book. The photographs alone are priceless. The way that you go back to the very first team from Simon Kenton, this team that won the state when they played together back in grade school and junior high. You put a lot of work into this. Talk about the writing process, Eric. You know, how you brought this together and how you got Joe B. Hall, who coached Kentucky's 1978 national championship team, and Nick Clooney to write the intro.
Well, I was bold enough to ask.
Imagine that. Anybody who knows Eric, imagine that.
Yeah, Nick Clooney, because he was at Channel 12 at the time, was familiar with the story, and he agreed to write an introduction. And I thought he would be interested because he's from Bracken County. George played at Augusta. I tell in the preface how I guarded George in a box-and-one defense back when I was at Latin school. They won. And then I knew he was connected. He was familiar with Simon Kenton because down in Mason County. And then Joe Hall, of course, because of the Troy McKinley. And Joe Hall was, I've never met Joe Hall before. And he read the book. And he wrote a very nice foreword to the book, and I think it adds a little star power. So I'm really proud to have them connected to the story.
Well, you know, you and I have written a book together called Saving Grace.
Correct.
Sarah Brady. I got to get that plug in, and we'll talk about that when it comes out for sure. But I worked with you on that, and I've never seen anybody work as hard as you do. How were you able to write this whole book while you're still doing your law practice?
Well, you know, it's a labor of love. I did the interviews in November and December with my court reporter and a transcriptionist. I just gathered everything together, but at midnight, you know, when I stop doing my legal work, usually between midnight and 4 in the morning is when I do my writing. I know that's crazy, but I basically live on two-hour naps a day. I take a 2-hour nap in the evening and a 2-hour nap between 4 and 6.
And I worked with him on a book that is no hype at all. I've never seen anything like it.
But I really do think that the story will resonate. And anybody who has a kid, a child in sports, grandparent, this would be a great gift for Christmas. And I tell you right now, the stories aren't just about basketball. One of my favorite anecdotes is the band. And I know you're a big Highlands parent. Yeah. The band, the first time they got to play after the explosion, they didn't have uniforms. They had to borrow instruments. They went out on Highlands football field. Highlands always kills Simon Kenton football. They went out in their street clothes and played with the borrowed instruments, and the Highlands parents and crowd gave them a standing ovation. Well, that's good. Wasn't a dry eye in the place.
That's great.
I mean, so it wasn't just the basketball; it affected everybody, and I'm really proud of it.
Now you put together. We were watching a DVD you put together on this. I mean, it's a beautiful DVD with great music that you picked and quotes that you love. Every chapter starts with a quote. You're big on quotes. This thing's made for a movie. Now you told Nick to send it to George, or he has sent it to George Clooney,
Well, here's what I signed a book for George, and I wrote in there, "You have got to make this movie." And I sent a DVD, 2 DVDs to Nick, and he forwarded to George. He wrote me a note, and he told me that he forwarded George's book and the DVD to George Clooney. And I just can't fathom. I know George graduated in '78. He's familiar with the story. His dad wrote the intro. He loves basketball. I think if George Clooney watches that DVD and takes a look at this book, I can't fathom him not being interested in producing this movie. And when you look at Gridiron Gang and Invincible being #1 2 weeks in a row when they came out, I mean, this story will resonate, and I'm hoping George picks it up. A screenplay's being written by Barry Williams. If George Clooney or somebody doesn't pick it up, and we were going to go to Hollywood and shop it in January, I do intend on raising money and doing it as an independent film.
All right, give us another anecdote about it, Eric. Tell us something else about the book.
Well, I'll focus on basketball briefly. Troy McKinley did something that year which I don't think has ever been accomplished by any basketball player on any level. He led the 9th region in field goal percentage, 28 points, free throw percentage of 81%, and also field goal percentage of 63%. You know, usually the top scorers don't lead in field goal percentage, and he does that. He also was 5th in rebounds.
Well, he was a jump shooter too.
He was a jump shooter.
He's shooting 63%.
Exactly, and
Unbelievable.
this was before three-pointers.
Right.
I mean, so it was an amazing basketball feat, and of course he gets his own chapter. But there's so many good anecdotes, like Andy Burns, the center, who's like the Bill Buckner
From
of Walton.
Verona.
To this day, because he missed the front end of a free throw, he's treated like Bill Buckner in Walton. I mean, people still say, God, if you would have made that free throw, we would have won the state. And Andy Burns, of all the ironies, Andy Burns traces his genealogy to Simon Kenton. I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up.
Yeah, there is the last chapter, one of the last chapters talks about the coincidences between Walton Verona and Independence and Simon Kenton, and then the number 7.
It's absolutely.
So there's some odd connections there. Eric, where can we buy the book?
You can buy the book at all local bookstores in Greater Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky. Borders and Barnes & Noble, both Barnes & Noble, all the bookstores have them. And there's going to be a book signing November the 17th at the Levee on a Friday night at 7 o'clock. All the players, coaches will be there. Oh. And December 2nd at Borders, 2 o'clock, Crestview Hills. All the players, coaches, firemen. We all go to these book signings together, and you get everybody's signature on the book.
That is fantastic. Pioneer spirit. Eric Deters, congratulations, buddy.
Thank you.
I know how hard you worked on it. It was a labor of love.
And let's look forward to Savings Grace coming in.
Yeah, we'll come out here and promote that too if Joe Zink lets us. Thanks a lot, Eric Deters. When I come back, I'll be talking to Bob Walker from the Nilson Walker Financial Group here on the chat room.